That's not allowed.
I'll stop, but I'm being serious. I'm serious.
No, you're kidding.
I'm gonna double check.
You're fucking like.
As the movie person,
that's cool.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Just get somebody who's like obviously more fit and athletic, and have them do a version of Joel McHale. That's what I'm saying.
There's so many other people that would be better than Joel McHale.
100%.
Oh, well, apparently he's rumored, but I mean, they start filming in like 2 months.
I hate when people just get celebrities for the name, right? To like bring in people who are like, oh, can't wait to see this celebrity that I'm into get into this fucking
Chris Pratt
thing.
is Mario.
Yeah, like Chris Pratt is Mario. Get the fuck out of here. He was honestly, okay, straight up, he was fine. I didn't care. Like, but like, yeah, but like you got him because you want people, and I get it. Like, there's two sides, right? We talk about this a lot. There's like, yeah, you want to get the actor because they have a fan base and they're gonna bring people in, but like, you don't need to bring people into fucking Nintendo games. Like, they already existed. They were good. They like if you do Zelda, you don't have to go get like fucking Timothy Chalamet to play Link. Like, you don't need it. You don't need it.
His dramatic ass being Link. I will save you, Zelda. Hiya.
Perfect. We nail it every time. I hope you know that. That's how we get into this. Welcome back to Unpop, a hot topic popular podcast that talks about biopics and Lego Bionicle.
You're never going to say the same thing twice.
I'm going to do the bit until it fits.
It's never going to fit because you're all over the place.
It's going to fit.
Okay.
We're doing it, Odie. I can't wait till I come in and just bust a rhyme all over this place with the idea of and in the middle of words. Just internal rhyme structure and Eminem verse in front of you that makes you go, holy shit, Kev, you should have done rap. And I'll go, nah, man. Nah. Anyway, welcome back to Unpop. My name is Kevin Miner, he, him. With me, as always, is Odie Matthews, they, them. Say hey, Odie.
Hi, everybody.
Perfect. We're off to a great start. Odie, we were talking after last podcast that we needed to do an episode on
cults.
That's right.
My favorite thing. Not my favorite thing, but a fun thing to talk about nonetheless. I didn't mean that. Take that off the record.
My favorite thing, my cult. I love my cult brothers.
Because I have a cult.
Just getting in with my cult brothers. Just loving them. What is your cult, Odie? Actually, that's a good way to start this out. Odie, is there a cult that you participate in?
Yeah, there's a cult that I'm actively a part of. It's the first one that I actually did want to talk about, and it's the one that gave me the idea when we were talking about it, and it's Star Wars.
Oh, shit. We're going right into Star Wars?
I'm just going right into it.
All right, hit it up. I already know that Star Wars is a cult, and I have a bigger overarching thing. Like some qualifiers for cults that I'll bring up later, but go into Star Wars. Explain the cult of Star Wars, sir.
Okay, so there's two things. One, I would love to do a Star Wars episode because as a massive Star Wars nerd, but no, because I want to talk about Star Wars. But the reason I want to bring up Star Wars first as like a culty thing is because when people think of cults, they think of like Jamestown and like Charles Manson and what's another good cult? KKK, stuff like that, right? But the thing is like...
I mean, the KKK is not so much a cult. They're a hate group, but yeah,
that's true. That's true. I mean, most cults are kind of
I see where you're going. They have hoods, they have robes, they have weird names, they burn effigies. Okay.
But
Go on.
I think that we wanted to kind of talk more in the joking sense about like cults in pop culture as well as like actual cults. So
Yes.
as an example of a cult in pop culture, I think a really good one, a lot of fan bases, but Star Wars, you know, the saying, nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. And prime example of that, right? So here's a good example, and this is what made me kind of want to do it. So I'm on, it was like Instagram, and I was scrolling, and I've been on big Star Wars kicks, so my phone, you know, because it's always listening, it knows that I've been watching Star Wars. So everything on my TikTok and Instagram and Google ads are all Star Wars now, which is fantastic, and I love it. But there was this video, and it was like the worst and best like wielders of lightsaber colors. And every single color that they did blue, green, yellow, and red. And for the worst, they had Rey for all of them. Like, Rey never even picks up a green lightsaber. And they were just like, Rey. And then in the comments, everyone was like, Rey sucks. This is the worst thing to happen to Star Wars. How dare they make a female? And it's like, Jesus Christ, guys. Like, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So, nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. And I think that's hilarious because Star Wars Celebration, which is another reason I wanted to bring up Star Wars, was not too long. It was like a week or two ago at the time of recording.
That's
they
weird.
announced.
Why didn't they do it on May 4th?
Well, there's two different Star Wars celebrations. This was Star Wars Celebration over in London. The main Star Wars Celebration is still coming on May 4th. Okay. This was more of like announcements. So they announced the 3 new movies, and one of them was, they're like, Rey's coming back. And I personally am like, oh, cool. Let's see what that leads to. But that's all the incels are, you know, are up in arms about it. So.
See, okay. You've stumbled onto another cult, right?
Mm-hmm.
Incels.
Segways.
Yeah. So really, when it comes down to like, I like what you said first. Like, nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. I properly agree. And this is as someone who, I don't think this is a hot take, appreciates Solo, Andor, and The Mandalorian as like prime Star Wars material, because it's not all fucking Jedi, right? Because the Jedi are just like I don't think it's good to have a walking Deus Ex Machina in every scene of a movie. And I think it's cool seeing a story about the Jedi, but like the original trilogy is about Luke learning how to be a Jedi. He was cut off from them for so long that there's actually character development. But then every other time they have Jedi, even with Anakin, like, and they really fucked this up. Like, he's like force powered to the max from the get-go. They're like, we've never seen a kid drive a pod racer. Must be the fucking Force. Like, and so I just think since the original trilogy, they've really like just continually like, you know, Lucasfilms has just been like, hey, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And then somebody internally must have been like, hey, maybe we don't do that. And they're like, nah, we're going to do it. And like, and then just bam, bam. Like, let's bring in Mace Windu. Let's have Yoda flip around. Well, like, they're just like, it's force powered to the max instead of showing a progression, right? And so you lose a lot of elements of what would make somebody appreciate the story a lot more. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, Kevin, I want to drop some stuff on you real quick, even though we're not going to get into Star Wars. But technically, if you look at chronological order of Star Wars, the Force dwindles with the light side as the Sith gets stronger. And after Episode 3, after Order 66, after the Jedi fall, that's when the Sith really get more powerful. And that's why he was disconnected from the Force. But we're not going to get into the details of it. I'm just kidding.
Is that the actual like retcon explanation that we're supposed to get?
Well, it's not really a retcon explanation as much as it is if you look at, I don't know how, like, again, as a massive Star Wars nerd, if you look at the Old Republic, like before the Sith came up with the rule of 2, like it was all out like Jedi versus Sith warfare in the Old Republic. But like the Force, I don't know, like this is more of an opinion from my own perspective. But if you look at the order of like the start of the 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin all the way up until where we're at chronologically with like the sequel trilogy, the Force gets weaker until like it's at its weakest when we meet the Jedi in Episode like 2. Like the Jedi are, I mean, you see it. Like, again, don't want this to be a Star Wars episode, but it feels like it's turned into a Star Wars episode.
I don't keep going. I don't care. Go. I'm intrigued.
The Jedi are stupid. Like the New Republic that we meet during the Clone Wars, they suck. They're terrible Jedi. They don't know what Qui-Gon Jinn, horrible Jedi. Unpopular opinion, I don't care. He's a terrible Jedi. He's an idiot. Okay, he just
Okay.
was like, hey, this kid could be the chosen one. Everyone's like, I don't think he is. Jedis that are way smarter than him are like, I don't think he's the chosen one. He's like, you know what? Let's ruin this kid's life. And
Yeah.
but anyways, because then if you
Well,
look
and then
at
Obi-Wan just follows suit.
Yeah.
Real talk, I don't think that it's anything to do with the actual internal structure of the universe. I think it has everything to do with the world building. And I think,
oh yeah,
like, I've watched the documentary on how Star Wars, like the original Star Wars, was saved in the edit, right? You know? And
by his wife.
That's great. I fucking love that. Why is it that the hubris of people ends up like ruining things later? I don't think we'll ever know because no one seems to learn the lesson, you know, but I think George Lucas was just like, I'm going to write the story of Anakin, but it's really Darth Vader. And like,
It's Dave
you know where
Filoni.
it's going the entire
Dave
time.
Filoni saved it.
Well, and like,
The guy.
yeah, but then like, so then you're going through these stories and it feels like he just romanticized a character. And I honestly, this is just me speculating. I think what happened was George Lucas took things about himself and put them into characters that he wanted to elevate and put on a pedestal. And he was like, nobody trusted this guy, but he knew what to do the entire time. Yeah, and then I'm going to write 50 extra fucking pages of that for you guys to swallow down. And so now we've had to go through, and you know, to go back to what you originally said, nobody hates Star Wars like a Star Wars fan. That's because if you're a Star Wars fan and you go through all of it, there's so much retconning that happened in between each big like story and world building dump that happened in this universe that like it's hard to like all of it. It's hard to appreciate all of it for what it is, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. I think, yeah. Anyways, we'll save the rest of Star Wars talk for the Star Wars episode because
this was our Star Wars episode, Odie.
This is not our Star Wars episode, Kevin.
I absolutely loved it. This was such a good Star Wars episode. I'm glad we covered everything.
I'm quitting.
Perfect. No, okay. So let's get into the cult topic.
Another cult, yeah.
The reason that we originally came up with this topic is because I started talking to you about Sleep Token, and you started talking to me about Ghost, right?
Yes, because I'm going to see Ghost in August.
Yeah, and these are, for anybody who's listening that doesn't know who either band is, although I'm going to guess that most of the people listening to this right now are our friends, and they've probably heard about these bands ad nauseum from us. But, like, Odie, give me a breakdown, because I actually still don't. I've done no research on Ghosts. Like, I've listened to them a couple times. They're not really, like, they don't scratch that itch for me. So, like, I'm just like, all right, cool. They're obviously good. People really love them. The music's not bad. I didn't hate it. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Give
I'm
me
not the right person to ask. I'm not the right person to ask. Only
Why?
because, so.
Are you not in the cult?
My partner is the one that introduced me to Ghost.
Did
and
Goose not initiate you? Like, isn't there like a blood sacrifice or like something that you're supposed to do before you go see them live?
So Goose is definitely in the cult because, I mean, they were the ones that wanted to get the tickets to go see him. And I was like, yeah, like I listen to their music. Like they're good. And so that's why I was like, yeah, I'm going to see Ghost. Like I'm not in their cult.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about them, unfortunately. But I do like their music. I do think they're good. The cult that I would be in would be more like Bad Omens or...
That's not a cult.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think there's a band I like that would be considered like to have a cult following.
Okay, well, give me a rundown of Ghost from what you know, because you probably still know more than me, because Goose talked to you about it, and they know about them.
All right. Well, if they're yelling, they're gonna. Okay. Yeah. So what I know about them is basically they're Swedish, I believe.
Okay.
And the lead singer, his name is like. Are you looking at their information? What's the lead singer's name? I'm looking up
their tour dates for this year.
Oh. I think the lead singer's name is like Pharaoh or something like that. But they dress like with makeup and all these outfits. And like the whole point of the band, like a lot of their songs are all about like mocking religion and like kind of like satire on religion. And it's like really kind of funny. And that's why, and this is what Goose told me, that they don't really tour in America that much because a lot of their music and like their whole vibe and display and persona on stage is like anti-religion or like religion satire, and obviously like if you come to America you could probably get shot for that, so they don't usually apparently tour over here for those reasons.
Oh yeah, you can get shot for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up lead singer's name.
Okay, so like So they're mocking religion, but in doing so, they don a lot of the garb and the like semblance of religious figures and characters, right? And like they kind of take on a religious-esque feel.
Yeah, it's. Okay. I'm probably not using the right word.
So this kind of goes into something that I was thinking about this week after we were talking about this topic, and that's that like all cults have a religious aspect to them or things that they have taken from religion, but not all cults are religious.
Yeah, no,
right?
I would agree with that.
So like they're not religious in like the spiritual sense, but like there's obviously a religiosity to them in that like you go about like you go about worship or tribute in a form, right? And there are definitely things that you do as a collective that are very akin to how we have like religion structured into different aspects of other people's lives, should they so choose to partake in a religion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and what that really goes back to, like I kind of got like really deep in thought one day, and I was just going back into the notion that like, all right, so we have within us as humans, like part of the human experience is that we have an inert sense of tribalism, right? That evolved with us, and then socially we've reinforced that by the conditioning of having like rituals and things that you do with your tribe, and like even just the idea, like the word cult is in the word culture, right? Cult. The occult is a microcosm of a culture, right? So like it's there. It's like in your face already. And we've kind of primed ourselves to being susceptible to being cult-like in nature, even if we're not being religious about it, right? I.e., Star Wars. The first thing that you mentioned was Star Wars. You didn't mention like Heaven's Gate, you know? You didn't mention like Jehovah's Witnesses or like people who practice Wicca in a cult-like fashion or like anything like that, right? You went straight to a thing that has a following and it has icons and it has gatekeepers and like and really like what it came down to me is I was like, oh, well, the reason we can say stuff like that now and the reason we can assess on that level is we understand the semblances, the characteristics of different cults. Like we have pulled from religion and the occult into our modern day society, and then we have built subcultures and cults within subcultures using those same like brick and mortar setups, not brick and mortar, but like, you know, foundational setups that are essentially just like they're within us already. Like we already have it. Like we're tribalist in nature. We can't help that unless we're being completely self-aware. So now you've got the cult of Star Wars, right? You've got like, I mean, to anybody who's not in a specific religion, like that religion, a different religion that they don't follow could be a cult, right? Like if you're an atheist, every religion's a cult. But there's also kind of a cult of atheism, you know? Like there is a religiosity to the way in which many an atheist embraces their faith in a lack of theistic possibility, right? So like cults are just, they're fucking everywhere in society because that's what we do. We start picking these pieces of our identity and then we go, oh yeah, that's part of who I am as a human animal and part of who I am in the society that I recognize, and this is the culture that I adhere to, and not only that, it's part of my identity. So cults, really, what they are is they are an overt, displaced form of identification.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so that is, you just set me up perfectly for what I was gonna. My next question to you was,
hit me.
Do you want to hear what I think is the funniest, like, cult? I would consider this a cult, but the funniest cult in America that I've seen lately.
100%.
Fast food chain loyalists. And my example of this is on the West Coast out here, because you know you're an East Coast person. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know we don't judge, but I like to spend my time more out towards the west.
That's fine.
And when I was out in California for my job, and it was the same way when I lived in Utah. It's the same way when I live out here. People on the West Coast lose their fucking mind for In-N-Out. And if they go anywhere where there's not an In-N-Out, they tell you and make sure that you know In-N-Out is better than anything else in that area. And on the flip side of that, there's more, because on the flip side, there's the same people that will be that way for any fast food chain. I've seen it with In-N-Out, Whataburger, Five Guys, Chick-fil-A versus Popeyes, all of them. Raising Cane's, all of them. And these people will be like, I won't eat Five Guys. It's not as good as In-N-Out. I won't eat it. I won't do it. It's not as good. I've literally seen there's an In-N-Out. There's one In-N-Out in my entire radius where I live outside of Denver.
Yeah.
One. About 10 minutes from me. And my area, where my little subdivision, not that busy. We drove by that In-N-Out on a Tuesday night, and there was 36 cars in the fucking drive-thru.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
It's insane.
Hold on. Expounding upon what you were saying, over here in the Northeast, we very much have we have two warring cults, like the cults that are warring for influence in the fast food realm over here. And I would call it fast food, right? It's still fast service. Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Those are our cults in Boston. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you go to Boston, there's diehard
It's Dunkin'.
Donkeys. Did you get your donkeys, right? Like people
every corner
get their donkeys. Not only that, there's actual stickers. I saw a sticker the other day. It says Donkey Junkie on it. I'm like, all right. We've done it, folks. We're at peak.
We made
peak level addiction here.
That's amazing.
But that's kind of going back to what I was saying. It's ingrained. Like, of course things are going to be cult-like. It's literally built into the language that we have to describe different things. Like, we're not talking about fast food loyalty. We're talking about brand loyalty. And what do the most extreme cults do when you're an initiate? They brand you, right? You become synonymous with the symbol that represents the cult. How many people have you seen walk around with like a shirt on that just has a brand on it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we are, Odie. We're a cult because we're a brand. So you and me, right? We are a cult now. I hope you enjoy being in it. We're the first two members, founding members. I think we're going to be something more like the Freemasons. Like I want like a secret handshake. I want us to be like making our own preserves, like fruit preserves. I feel like the Freemasons.
We gotta make our own magnets
to verify that this is true. I don't even think it's in the Da Vinci Code, but I have a feeling they're the types of people that make their own fruit preserves. I feel like that would be a nice bonus for the cult that we're forming.
You can also throw butter in then while we're doing it. Then we have fruit and butter.
Dude, let's get butter and fruit preserves and just like make toast and jam, man. I mean, what a great breakfast for our cult. I will eat that sometimes for breakfast. So
I make my own butter.
All right, cool. We're doing this. One thing that we've touched on a couple times that I really want to get into that I think is an absolute like it is an absolutely pervasive piece of cult culture that exists in so many different parts of subculture and pop culture. And it's acolytes, right? Devout personages who hold the keys to knowledge and wisdom, or at least perceive that they do, or as we would like to call them in pop culture sense, or at a Comic-Con, gatekeepers, right?
Yes.
Like these are the people who are like, oh yeah, you fucking like Star Wars? I went and saw the first Star Wars in 1978, you fucker. Like it's like, cool, right, dude. That's awesome. And instead of that being like an experience that they share with you in a friendly nature, it becomes like a qualifying agent for how devout they are, right? It's almost like having a badge or like a thing that represents like how hardcore you are into it. And to go like back into what we were talking about, first we're talking about Ghost and Sleep Token. And Sleep Token this year blew up. Like, I don't know if you noticed or paid attention
no, they did.
to it, but I got tickets to their show in Worcester, and then literally an hour later, their entire North American tour was sold out.
Yeah, I had to be quick to get the Ghost tickets.
Yeah, and not only that, like here's how I found out that they were going on tour. They had a link on their Instagram reel, and like they do this funny thing where they really like they're not very it's like tongue in cheek, but it's also kind of like a in your face joke. where like when they post something, if it's something that you can buy from them, it just says obtain. And if it's something that like you can listen to from them, it says worship. Like it's really, really funny.
I love that.
Yeah. So like there was a thing, it said obtain, and it was the announcement for their tour. And I clicked on the link and it brought me to their tour page so I could buy tickets. New York City sold out in minutes, and tickets are now going for $400. Right. And then Worcester almost sold out in like hours. And I got 2 tickets to it. You could only buy 2. And I got 2 to the balcony and was like, oh, thank God. I'm actually wearing a Sleep Token shirt right now. But
Red Sox.
There you go. That's a cult, right?
Oh, but wait, I have a story.
Right, keep going. Sorry.
No. You're good. No, because you mentioned the music thing, and I literally had the perfect story for this, because what are the chances that this would happen? So, quick story time. This was probably 5-6 years ago. I was still living in Florida. I was working the same job, but we were doing this weekend. So the company I work for, I'm not going to name names, but it's an environmental company. And on the weekends where I was in Florida, they would partner with the local landfill for the county and let the community come in and bring all their like hazardous waste and like chemicals and stuff. And we would get rid of it for them so they didn't, wouldn't pollute and they wouldn't throw it away and, save the trees and everything. So one of the guys there, he was a senior chemist, and he was my mentor at the time. And him and I like to do, like, we'd sing back and forth songs from like the 70s and 80s, because as the youngest of 7 kids, I was raised with like classic rock from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? And we both appreciate that type of music. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you were raised with that type of music or not. You can still appreciate it. You can appreciate music from the 1910s if you want to.
You can appreciate any music.
So we started singing, and I think you know this song, Brandy by The Looking Glass.
Yeah.
You know that song?
Yeah.
Okay. Great song. Wonderful song, right? It's a bop. So that was the song we started singing. This guy I've never seen before, don't know who he was, but he worked for the company, looks at me and goes, "You probably don't even know who sings that." And I was like, "The Looking Glass." And he was like, "Yeah, but you're too young to know who that is." And I was like, but I know the song. And he was, I said, that's what I said. I was like, "I know the song though." And he was like, "Yeah, well, anybody can use Google." And I looked at him, I'm not kidding, Kevin. I looked at this guy straight in the face, and I was like, and I was like, "Yeah, that's how I learn a lot of things." And I just walked away. Like, wait, yeah. Like what? If you hear a band on the radio, you can't Google it. Like, this guy's gonna be like, "Don't Google that. You're not allowed to know who that is. You weren't alive."
Yeah, right.
Like, get the fuck out of here.
When did it become like such a thing? Like, I feel like I've been that guy, maybe not to that degree before, but I've definitely done some gatekeeping, right? Like, I get it. I went through my 20s.
Me too.
When you're in your 20s, you're like this weird combination of confident but insecure, right? So like, yeah, of course, anything that you're really into, it's almost like you kind of want people to appreciate it more. You're like, "Yeah, look at how much I know about the thing that you just mentioned. Hey, oh yeah, you want to mention Star Wars? Let me talk to you about the Star Wars universe and some books that you probably haven't read." Or like, and like, but that's where things end up being like cults. Like it feels like, and I don't feel like I remember this being a part of our culture, even in my like younger years. I don't think anybody was like gatekeeping me like when I was in like middle school or anything. Even like friends, they weren't like, "You don't get." Well, I guess actually, no, we kind of always do it. Yeah, because there are people who are like, "Yeah, you're not a fan of Power Rangers. You don't know the fucking story, or like whatever it is." But like, why is that a part of our culture that we latch onto something so hard that it becomes part of our identity? And then we use that identity to either welcome or to deny newcomers into like whatever we recognize as our personal culture. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, I personally, one of the first things I thought when Sleep Token blew up this year, I was like, here it comes. I'm going to run into that guy. Like, and I can picture him right now. He's a little bit older than me, and he's got a beard, and he maybe hasn't bathed in a couple days. And he's going to talk to me at the Sleep Token show, because I'm going to be real pumped up about it, because you know how I am. If I'm into something, I'm in 100%, right? And
Love
like,
it.
He's going to come up, and he's going to be like, "Hey, did you listen to them in 2016? I'm going to be like, "Yeah, I listened to them in 2016. He'll be like, "Oh, yeah, when that first track, that was real raw," right? Like, and they always try to qualify like the initial, and this happens with bands more than anything else. Like people are like, "Oh yeah, that first thing that they ever released, it was so raw." And it's like, cool. Yeah, but they've gotten better.
That was the
too.
real them.
And they've also developed. Like, and it's and I feel like going back to, last episode that we had, we talked about sequels. And I feel like part of the reason it's so hard to make a sequel, going back to what I said, is that, like, there's a cult that starts forming around the idea and world building that you've done. And then all of a sudden you have to, like, appease them, but then also bring in new people. And this happens for bands and movies and franchises and brands. Is like, like, could you, like, go into even the fast food thing, like, Burger King does a plant-based Whopper, half of the cult loses its fucking mind, right? Like it was theirs. Like it was their, like they're not perfect example. Budweiser, Bud Light releases, like, they like support a transitioning, a person in transition, right? And then all of a sudden, dudes who drink Bud Light are like, oh, this beer's for gays now. And it's like, well, it was a light beer to begin with. You do know that, right?
Can I say the funniest part about that?
What?
The funniest thing that I've seen about this whole Bud Light controversy, which I stay away from politics, and that's totally fine. But as someone who's a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I like to talk about it. A lot of the videos I'm seeing crack me up because it's people that have either clearly bought brand new cases of Bud Light or already bought Bud Light. And then they're throwing it, they're destroying it, they're being little crybabies. But then they're like, I'm going to drink this beer, Sam Adams. And it's like, Sam Adams did this before Bud Light. Every beer does this. You want to know why? It's marketing. And the funniest thing, and I don't, you know what, this might offend some people. Feel free to cut this out. But the thing about Bud Light, the reason it was originally marketed towards the demographic it was is because it was the easiest demographic to get them to buy it. Because all they had to do is be like, Bud Light, trucks, guns, yeehaw. And they were like, well, that's my beer.
Dude, that's the easiest cult to get to follow anything, is the cult of, like, America, right? Really, like, come on, like, America's a cult too.
No, you're right.
There's the cult of America, and you either and how much you buy into it qualifies you for different levels of American experience, right? Like, let's be real. There's the cult of the American flag, where it's like, I fucking salute that and the idea that it is, and then there's like,
tattooed on my ass
the guy
cheeks.
standing next to him, and it's like, you don't even know nothing about it. Do you have your fucking gun license, man? And it's like, actually, I feel like we should have some gun reform. And they're like, you're not fucking American. Like, it's like, there's all the different qualifying levels of being American now. And like it comes to the point where then the counterculture starts forming, and then you have the cult of anti-Americanism, where it's like, all right, well, if America's gonna be that we're all gonna shoot each other for pulling into the wrong driveway and argue over when a plant-based burger gets sent out, or buy cases of beer to dump out because we don't like the idea that someone might be transitioning, maybe I'm out of that cult. Maybe I'm not in. Maybe
that's not where I want to be.
I don't pass the initiation tests of hatred that bring me into that cult, right? And like, but then what happens is then people start latching onto ideas on the opposite end, because it's not just a linear thing. There's a spectrum of kaleidoscopic variables onto which someone can then pull and create and form an identity. So then you have the people who are like, like, I'm so fucking anti-American, I still have the anarchist cookbook downloaded in PDF form. It's like, all right, great, that's amazing, cool, man. And that's okay. So going back into what I was talking about before, like, so like in every cult, I think probably one of the most important and key factors are gatekeepers, right?
Oh yeah,
like gatekeepers.
Sports fans are a great example.
They are the lifeblood of cults, and then. But then what you have, and this is where I wanted to qualify why everything can kind of be a cult, especially in culture. It's that you have an icon, right? So you have an icon. So like, pick one. Fucking Baby Yoda, Wendy's, like whatever it is.
Colonel Sanders.
The Nike symbol. Like, yeah, all of these things. Like you have, like brand loyalists, people who literally won't buy anything besides Nike kicks, right? Like you have an icon, and then people start forming an identity around it. And then some people form a strong enough identity that they self-elect themselves to be the gatekeepers of that symbol, right? And then they start like barring off other people. But then other people whose like whose identities aren't maybe fully formed, and maybe they're a little bit insecure, or like they're kind of looking for a little bit something extra in their life, because we're meaning makers. We're always looking for meaning in our life, right? Then they go, hey, well, I kind of want to be a part of that. And, you know, the gatekeeper, it's almost like they can smell fresh blood, right? They're like, oh, we have a new initiate? Get on over here. Yeah, come on in. Yeah. We don't eat anything if it's not a double quarter pounder with cheese, man. You're fucking in. You got to be in the cult. You only eat double quarter pounder with cheese. If anybody orders you a salad, you throw it on the fucking floor, because that's what you're into. Welcome to the cult of McDonald's. 48 billion served. You know, like, that's the fucking thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and then that person goes, they're like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah, really. That's what you got to do. And you got to go dump out Bud Light if gay people drink it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they go do it. But then that person, like, you know, then other people rally around them. And they're like, yeah, you did the thing that we all did. And they're like, oh, cool. I guess I'm kind of in a cult and have an identity now. And before they know it, their opportunity to form an individualistic identity is gone. And, like, all of a sudden, they're just, like, you know, wearing a fucking bald eagle American flag shirt and walking around with, like, a concealed carry permit and eating a bunch of double cheese. This is really anti-American. Let me use a different example, because, like, I don't want to just say, be anti-American. They're, like, walking around with, like, a fucking lightsaber in their pocket, and they're telling somebody about, you know, all the lost stories of the Jedi or whatever it is. Like, it just happens. Like, people lose their opportunity to form their own individualistic identity around something. And I remember the day that I, like, was able to properly self-reflect and go, oh, you've been gatekeeping a couple things, you know, and, like, maybe you shouldn't do that, and you should just share the things that you love about it. That really, like, that marked a transitioning point for me ideologically, you know, and as a person, where I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I don't have to be a dick about shit. Maybe people are just getting interested into something, and it doesn't matter if it's from 20 years ago and I've been into it for 20 years. Someone might just be learning about it today. Like, I don't have to gatekeep.
Yeah.
I shouldn't gatekeep. If anything, I should just hold it open and go, hey, yeah, cool. It's a cool thing, right? You see, there's other stuff on the other side. Yeah, find it for yourself. That was part of the fun. You know, like, and gatekeepers, I feel like a lot of times they ruin part of the fun for people. Like, they're like, oh, you're into Marvel now? Well, did you ever read these comics? It's like, no, they didn't fucking read these comics. This person just went and saw their first Marvel film. Of course they didn't read those comics.
Ooh, can I talk about that for a second, actually?
Yeah, sorry. That was really long, but, like,
I just wanted to let you have your piece.
I think ultimately, when it comes to cults and when it comes to gatekeeping is the worst part of any piece of culture, right?
Easily.
And it's the strongest part of any cult in culture. All right, go on.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say, you mentioned the Marvel thing, and I think people that are around our age and watched Marvel. So if you, this is for everybody that watched Iron Man 2008 in theaters. So if you're somebody who remembers watching Iron Man 2008 in theaters and you enjoy Marvel, this is for you. So I was thinking about it, and there's a lot of hate right now for Marvel because Phase 4, you know, after Endgame, you know, they did a bunch of things that people were not happy with. And look, totally understandable. Some of the stuff that Marvel's done lately, I kind of fell off the bandwagon. I've barely watched Marvel since Endgame.
The cult is a little upset right now. Go on.
I watched Moon Knight because I've always been a big Moon Knight fan. I actually have Moon Knight comics. I have Moon Knight Funko Pops. Like, Moon Knight is... I fucking love Moon Knight. I mean,
oh, that's cool. Did you read the one where... No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, I did. No, I'm just kidding. And then... But anyway, so I started thinking about it. And this is what I wanted to say. But I started thinking about it. And I realized that experience... I saw every single Marvel movie from Iron Man to Endgame in theaters opening weekend without fail. I was there. I watched it. Rain, shine, no matter what I was doing, in the military, on base, off base, I always saw them.
Awesome.
And after Endgame, which was, I saw it with my best friend, Ben Pugh. If you're listening, Ben, I love you. We saw Endgame together. It was one of the best experiences ever because right after Endgame, I moved away. And Ben and I had been around each other for like 10 years. So that whole experience of watching Marvel for 10 years in theaters was incredible. And then after that, because that story that was building up for those 10 years for us, you know, Phase 1, 2, and 3 were leading to Endgame, it just didn't feel the same anymore. And I realized it's because our experience of those 10 years of watching all of it, lead up to that big battle and watch our heroes, some of them die. Spoiler, Iron Man dies, Captain America retires, all of them kind of do their thing. Now this is for people this is for like the new generation of people that are going to watch Marvel. The after Endgame is it's almost like a soft reset in my mind where it's like, you know what? It's not for me anymore because I got my magical 10 years and my characters and my actors. And instead of being like, Marvel sucks now, it doesn't suck now. It's different. And it's different, and it's not for me. And it's not for you. If you don't like Marvel now, it might not be that it's bad. Not saying it isn't, because there are definitely things that are bad. But
100%.
It's changed. It's changed for new fans, for new people that are going to jump on Marvel.
And that's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's just like Star Wars.
Yeah. Like,
because
going back to the musical example, like Bring Me the Horizon is one of like my probably like top favorite bands, right? I love them. And I've been listening to them since they put out Pray for Plagues. Like, I remember being into that. I had like emo hair at the time. I was in a hardcore band. They've grown and changed, and they embraced that, and they've lost and gained fans over the years because of it. And like there are still people out there who are just like, like they wrote a song about it. They wrote that song Heavy Metal where they're like talking about their fans, or like the people who like hear about how they used to be, or hear Suicide Season or whatever it is, and they're like, this is how they should be forever, and then they're not, and they get mad. And it's like, dude, they're actual real people, and they're going to change, and they're going to evolve. And if their music changes and it's not for you, fucking fine. That's fine.
Exactly.
It's okay. And that's where I think gatekeepers end up becoming their most like vindictive, is when something changes, like going back to your original statement, nobody hates Star Wars like a Star Wars fan. And that's because
the best way to start this.
It's been around since 1978. There's multiple generations of Star Wars fans now. There are people who came in on Clone Wars, the animated series. They are not the same. Like, that's fine. And I'm going to get to the point with things that I love, like metal keeps changing, like some things that I love are changing. And sometimes I don't like love it, but like, it's not, I'm not the fucking like, I'm not like the primary like rock foundational piece of that culture, and my perspective doesn't span everything. So of course it's okay, and I should just accept that. And I think that's like what I was getting into, that I realized is that like, instead of gatekeeping, what we should be doing is going, oh, cool, I had a really nice experience with this, and if I can share that with somebody, that's cool. But we don't have to qualify them, and we don't have to compare them, because once you're comparing and contrasting, it's never going to equate. Like, it's not the same thing.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we got up through Endgame, and I remember I watched the first Iron Man movie, and I was like, I don't really like this that much. Like, it's okay.
Oh.
I was like, it's okay, but like, it was kind of dumb.
Fair.
Like, I was like, this was kind of a boring story. There were some cool action scenes, and it's done something that I haven't seen before. Cool. Done. And then, like, I don't think I got into the Marvel Cinematic Universe until, like, I want to say not Civil War. Winter Soldier was the first time I was like, this is a little bit different and cool. And then it turns out that they intentionally did that, and they brought me in. And there were people who were like, that wasn't a superhero film. And I remember that debate happening and me being like, well,
I do remember that debate.
There were superheroes in it. But it was an espionage film. And that got me more than anything else. And then like Guardians of the Galaxy is what really got me. I was like, okay, now I'm in. Like, now we got some weird stuff going on. We can get a little silly with it, but we can still have serious moments. This is fun. Then I was in. And then like at the end of Endgame, I remember like, it's called Endgame. Like, it doesn't have to be the same after that. It can be a new generation. It's fine. It's literally called Endgame. So, like, if that was your culture, it's okay if it's different now. The game ended. Yeah. The game...
Game over.
Like, it did. Yeah. Like, they gave it a proper title, and now there's, like, a new generation of heroes coming up. It's fucking nuts, man. And, like, okay, so then... The other thing that cults always have are rituals, right? Opening weekend for a Marvel movie, opening weekend for a Star Wars film, Star Wars celebration, whatever. Like, the MCU reveal day where they talk about the next project, you know, Comic-Con. Rituals exist for every cult, and this is why so many things in our culture have taken on a cult-like form, is that we have rituals now, right? We don't just have things anymore. Like, back in the day, and maybe they've always existed to some degree or another, but like, I don't want to say back in the day, but like, it seems like they've only grown in frequency, right? Frequency and density. Where like Comic-Con's huge, PAX East is now huge. Now there's even people who are like, I don't go to Comic-Con, but I go to PAX, or I don't go to PAX, but I go to the Anime Expo in New York City, or people are like, I go to the one in Philadelphia because it's better than New York City. Like, and that happens even within cults, you know. Like I'm sure you're familiar with this character. Like there's always the character in the movie. The movie I'm thinking of right now is The Mist, right? There's even like there's the religious people, but then there's the zealot. And that's where I wanted to go next, is like, so like, you've got your icon, you've got your gatekeepers, you've got your rituals, and then you have fucking zealots, right? When you first mentioned incels are only zealots. They are only zealous in nature. They band together, strengthen each other, reinforce their own biased belief. They use the confirmation bias on a day-to-day basis to confirm their own bias that people are against them, and then will that into existence. And zealots always, even if it's not there, manifest their own delusions into the fucking world, right? You know, like, that only happens once you've gotten to the level of cult-like, where there can be a zealot, where there's someone who's so into it. Like, we talked about John Wick, right? There's definitely a zealot for John Wick now. There's definitely someone who has grabbed onto that identity so much.
Oh, easily.
That they can't even fathom that another person could see the world building and universe as clearly as
the way
them.
they do.
And this
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that we're using the lens of like pop culture and subculture for this, because it happens in the real world too. And when it happens in the real world, it's only ugly. When it happens in pop culture and subculture, we can kind of make fun of it. Like, because it's like, yeah, dude, you love McDonald's so much, you know all the fucking stats. Or like, you're the biggest fucking Red Sox fan ever. You know, like, you've got a Red Sox jersey on. You don't know all the stats of the Red Sox, but you're going to come across someone who's a zealot. And they're going to be like, oh, what's your favorite World Series they were ever in? It's like, I don't fucking know, man.
I don't
like,
know.
I'm not going back and watching that. Like,
yeah, I couldn't even name more than five players.
This season on Red Sox.
On Red Sox.
Sorry.
No, that's my bad. I couldn't even name more than 5 players on the Red Sox because I'm a very casual sports watcher. I love the Red Sox. I've been a Red Sox fan since I was a kid, but it's something that it's on in the background, or, you know, ESPN will give me live updates because they don't play the Red Sox live because fucking ESPN sucks. But, you know, like, and I've had that before where people would be like, I remember when I used to watch football a lot heavier than I do now. Yeah. And when I was in the military, you know, college football was like all the rage. And there was this one fucking asshole who, anytime anybody said they liked a team, it didn't matter. He'd be like, name me 5 players. Name me 5 players. How many championships have they won? And it's like, dude, for one, you don't even like the same team as everybody else. And like, I was an Ohio State fan.
He's gatekeeping every team. He's just
every team. That's it.
Oh, you like the Cleveland Browns? Name me 5 players.
That's the thing is, like, he was like, his whole thing was, I don't remember what college team he liked, but it wasn't even the same division as half the people that were like, oh, I like this team. Oh, I like this team. Oh, he was a Florida Gators fan. That's what it was. And he was like, well, you know, his whole thing was like, if you're going to like football, if you're going to say that you like football, or no, it was if you love football. Because we were like, oh yeah, like I love football. Like I love football. I love watching football. And he was like, well, if you love football, like you should be able to say, like you should be able to name 5 players.
It's like, wow, dude.
Characters.
Wow.
But like, gatekeepers are on,
or like
all other levels.
You talked about Moon Knight, and I'm like, and I remember like when I was watching Moon Knight, I was like, wow, this show's really good. Like, this was cool. Like, I was coming home from work and catching an episode a night, and like that was kind of my entertainment for like a week or so. I was like, oh, nice, this is good. I like watching this while I'm going to bed, and I was very loosely into it, and I liked the idea of the Egyptian gods, and I didn't like I think at that point I had matured enough as like someone who consumes, like, because this is what we are. We're consumers who consume culture, and then some of us turn it into a cult. Like the culture becomes our identity. The thing that we literally become what we eat, right? Like you are what you eat, you are what you consume. So like we become what we consume, and like some people become it so much that they can't like put it down. Like, and I like to hyperfixate, but and sometimes it's even like meditative to just really like delve into the world of something. But I remember like while I was watching, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I should look into that sometime. And then never doing it because I was just like, oh, it was just fun and entertaining, and that's cool. You know, like and in my mind, I was like, oh, but should I maybe like look into it more? Because I'm going to come up against someone who's going to be like, oh, well, if you like Moon Knight, then who's your favorite Egyptian god? And I'm going to be like, I don't fucking know, man. Like,
can you name all of Moon Knight's split personalities?
I have no idea. Yeah. Like, huh?
Yeah, name all of Moon Knight's split personalities and what issue they debuted in.
I'm just like, I have no idea, man. Like, like legit. And like, The Sandman came out, and like that, Neil Gaiman has his own cult. You know, that could be a whole fucking episode. I love Neil Gaiman too, but I don't love Neil Gaiman so much that I worship everything he does. And I remember watching him. He did a live talk for a bookstore around here locally, and I was lucky enough to be in the audience, right? And I remember him being very humble about the things that he created, and like kind of just being like okay with the idea that some people loved it and some people didn't. And he was just like, yeah. I just like creating things, and I'm lucky that more people have loved it than have not. And like that's just a great perspective. That's very mature. It's very grounded. It's very self-aware. And I feel like that's all people are ever really looking for when they go and form these identities around things, is they want a better notion, they want a better idea of self-awareness for themselves, and they think that if they just grab onto something and make that part of their identity, that is self-awareness. But it's not. It's an easy way out. So like, yeah, cool, you have like the fucking Triforce tattooed on your arm like so many other Zelda fans, and like it's part of your identity. And yeah, I don't know a game apart from Ocarina of Time, which I loosely played as a kid. That doesn't mean I don't like it. You know,
do you mention hand tattoos? Because I have Star Wars tattooed on my hand.
I know, Kevin? but like you're not gatekeeping. Like you're not like name all the different types of Imperial troopers, Kevin. Like you're just like, oh, cool. You have your own opinion and I have mine. And I feel like that's the best way to behave in culture when we have all of these different cults. You know, like here's a fun little example that's also kind of a cool story that I wanted to share on the podcast anyway. So this past week, Brandy and the kids and we all play Magic the Gathering, right? And we play relatively religiously. Like it's one of the things that we like to do. So one of our rituals, right? Let's say we're a cult now, right? Let's use the cult language around this. One of our rituals is when a new set comes out, we buy a collector booster. Now, collector booster is, if we're getting into the cult language, that's something that if I was in a conversation, that elevates my status in the cult for certain people. Not for me, because I don't want to be elevated in a cult. I don't want that. But some people would hear that and then be like, oh, wow, you're like real into this. And it's like, no, we just want the cooler looking cards. So I ended up, and this is not a lie, you can look this up, I ended up pulling a serialized Jin Gataxias card.
Oh, you showed me this. You sent me the picture. Yeah, so I have proof, everybody.
Just so you know, Odie, that card is on sale online for $2,000. A card. A single card. And that's it's because it's a special print, it's one of a kind art, and it has a number on it. Now, I pulled this card while we were all doing our ritual of the collector booster, right? Which we always do. And we always enjoy. And nobody else was really like kind of getting what they wanted or enjoying their time doing it. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go trade this to my LGS. Now, I've done this a number of times with Magic the Gathering things in particular. And I think it's because I have self-awareness and Magic the Gathering isn't part of my identity. It's just something that I, as Kevin, the self-identified, do, right? Like, I'm being real serious. Like, it's not like I'm not gonna go gatekeep Magic the Gathering. I'm not gonna tell anybody they have to play it. I'm not gonna like try to explain it to anybody. But if people ask questions, I've got answers. So like, I went and immediately traded this card in for other collector boosters and things like that for us to open, and we had a much better time after that because we came back home, we got to open more cards, everybody's seeing cooler things, and we're really enjoying it. And I like that memory because afterward I felt good, like, and I knew that the card was going to be worth more than I had traded it for that weekend. But I'm not that guy. Like, there's someone out there who that card is for that is going to pay $2,000 for it, and they're going to love it. And I want them to be that guy. Like, I want them to have that ability because that's not me. Like, I'm not that cult member, you know? Like, I'm like, I would say anything that I engage with in culture at this point, I'm skeptical, and I'm on the outskirts, but I'm happy to be there because I choose the things that bring me joy and that I can use to bring others joy in life, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That being said, it would be cool to own a piece of cardboard. Well, it's not cardboard, it's cardstock. That's, you know, $200,000 or $2,000. Sorry. But like, even like, you know, everybody who's like super into Magic the Gathering that cites Post Malone, they always use the example of him paying $800,000. It was a lot of money. It was like 80,000 or something for a signed artist copy of a Jeweled Lotus, a Black Lotus, which is like one of the most expensive Magic cards ever.
That's cool.
And yeah, and it like elevates his status in the cult, right? You know, like that's a really funny thing because now, you know, we've over the course of this episode, we've kind of laid it out, right? You've got the cult. So like the cult forms around the icon. The icon was, you know, all of a sudden people start using that as a piece of their identity. They're like, okay, Adidas is part of my identity now. Nike's part of my identity now. McDonald's or like Dunkin' Donuts, In-N-Out Burger, whatever it is, that's part of my identity. And then those who are, I would say like on a personality level, they're a little bit weaker in mindset. They start gatekeeping. And they start gatekeeping because it makes them feel special, and it's a self-elected way to up their status in the cult, right? So then the gatekeepers bring in the new initiates who are like maybe a little more, let's say, serious. I'm using that word with air quotes because like it's a cult and it's not a real cult and it doesn't affect your actual day-to-day life other than you're grabbing onto it for part of your identity. And then some of those gatekeepers get so entrenched that they become zealots. And the zealots are, it's like... And the zealots are the people who attempt to mythologize and it's not a word, but make legend, you know, like legendize the icon. They try to make it the thing. They're the ones who like, the zealots are the people who like have a curtain and they've pulled the curtain over the icon. And then they've put an icon on the outside of the curtain. And then people are like, what's behind the curtain? They're like, ultimate joy, enlightenment, self-awareness, contentment, and everything you've wanted as a person is behind that curtain. And you can't see it yet because you don't know enough. You're not deep enough in the cult. And you have to drink this fucking Kool-Aid right now. Like... And that's
the Kool-Aid.
There's so many cultures that are like that and subcultures that are like that. And I feel like, you know, like going back to where we originally came up with this idea, like there's ghost tickets and sleep token tickets now that are on sale for hundreds of dollars. There's the cult of Taylor Swift, right? Where like, if she says anything, they follow it. Like that's probably
the Fifers might be listening.
I don't care because they are a cult and they can do whatever they want. They're a cult that one does not threaten me, and two,
I don't know. Kinsey's pretty scary.
Does not appeal to me. But ultimately, like, you know, that all comes back to like, there are people who will sell those tickets as gatekeepers to the cult. And like, you know, they're like, and then there are people who will buy tickets at that price and then use that to up their cult status. Like, I paid $2,000 for Taylor Swift tickets. It's like, you're a fucking idiot.
An idiot. Yep.
Yeah.
1,000%. You know how much we paid for our ghost tickets?
How much?
They were $55 a piece.
Yeah, dude, if Sleep Token sold out, I would have been like, well, wasn't meant to be.
I would have just been like, okay.
Yeah, like if opening weekend for a new movie is sold out, I'm like, oh, hopefully it's good. I'll go next weekend. You know, like,
dude, I have the AMC where you pay $22 a month and you can see 3 movies a week.
Oh, that's
because we have an AMC right down the street.
Yeah,
and I'll get on there and I'll be like, you know what? Like, it was last night. Last night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see that Renfield movie with Nicolas Cage and everything.
Oh, was it
good? I looked
good?
at the theater. So I looked at the theater seats, and every seat that I could pick, I was sitting next to somebody, and I was like, well, I'll go another time. I don't want to sit next to anybody.
You're like, I don't want to sit next to anybody during Renfield.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I just didn't go.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, I have to talk about one more thing.
Okay.
That is called requested by Byron Bennett, our good friend in the UK. He has asked me to talk about more Warhammer on the podcast. So
I know zero about Warhammer.
That's great.
Except for the fact that Henry Cavill likes it. You already gave me a lesson on Warhammer. I don't need another lesson. We can't do Warhammer this close together in episodes.
Oh, yes, we can. Well, here's a funny thing about Warhammer, because I just got into it recently. It, much like everything else we've talked about in this episode, is a cult. And there are many people who are gatekeeping this cult. And one of the things that I've enjoyed in learning about it is just how cult-like every single thing about that universe is. Like, every single thing about the Warhammer universe uses words like heretic, undesirable, like just all of like the most religious terms, to the point where even the emperor of mankind essentially, and you're going to love this, Odie, he fought his son to save mankind and sacrificed himself. He also has long dark hair and kind of like has an aura behind him and looks like Jesus, right?
Oh God.
And he fights his son, who has like turned to the dark side, the warp, the side of chaos. And they basically strike each other with a final blow, but then mankind is like, oh no, the emperor, we have to save this guy. And so what they do is they hook him up to a thing called the Golden Throne. Now, that already should be enough to let you know, okay, mankind is full of zealots and is basically a giant cult at this point. But not only is he hooked up to this thing, in Warhammer lore, mankind has to sacrifice, I think it's 10,000 psychers, which are people who have like ESP, essentially psychic abilities to one degree or another. They have to sacrifice 10,000 people a day to the Emperor's Golden Throne in order to keep him alive.
Okay. Sounds like a waste of people.
100%.
Seems like might be able to use those people a little bit more effectively.
You could, probably. But then there are people who will resist that, and they get labeled as heretics. And like, yeah, it's actually the world building and the fanatical obsession that people, and the lengths that people and beings go to in that universe is part of what makes it such a dark future, right?
Okay, here's a question. This can get me on a baseline.
Okay.
How closely is the Warhammer universe to something like, and I'm not saying it has to be exactly like, but give me an idea of what I can kind of like closely associate it with. Is it more like a Star Trek, a Star Wars, a Dune? Like,
okay.
Where would you, what other science fiction would you kind of, a Galaxy Quest?
Okay.
You know?
To build the idea of the universe
Quest.
around you, I would say, okay, so it's a little bit like Dune in scope and scale. Like, it's gigantic,
okay.
Right? So
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, there's entire galaxies, and the Imperium of Man is gigantic, right? It's a little bit like Judge Dredd, right? Ooh. Like the Judge Dredd universe, in that
Love Judge Dredd.
It's very, very fascist in nature, especially if you're taking the perspective of mankind. It's very, very fascist. and there are giant hive worlds that kind of remind me of Judge Dredd, like the overpopulated cities that they live in. But the hive worlds, some of them are just they literally just manufacture ammunition for the Empire. Like that the entire planet, even though there's ecosystem, like there's subsystems and ecosystems and stuff like that, the main function of the entire planet is to manufacture munitions. And they are called Forge Worlds, I believe.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
It's nuts. And then so you have like a little bit of Starship Troopers, a little bit of Dune. The Starship Troopers element is that there's an alien army called the Tyranids, and it seems like they're kind of gonna like consume the entire galaxy. And then so I would say Dune, Judge Dredd, Starship Troopers, a little bit of like
Starship Troopers,
a little bit of Blade Runner, like a little bit of Blade Runner in that, you know, like overcrowded, overpopulated, like super futuristic, technological. And then the other thing that I'm trying to figure out how to add, but then they're like pulling from different cultures. Like the Necrons are definitely influenced by like Egyptians of our day.
Okay.
Then,
it sounds like, this universe kind of sounds like, if I had to put it sounds like a mix of the Riddick universe, Dune universe, and Blade Runner, which honestly, if it's anything like those three, sounds amazing, because I love Blade Runner 2049. It's one of my favorite movies. I think that Riddick would be a lot better with a different actor, and then obviously like anyways, I'm
Riddick,
very curious about
starring
Warhammer.
Ethan Hawke.
Oh god. You know who would have been good in Riddick?
Who?
Pauly Shore. But since I don't know anything about Warhammer, I'm kind of excited.
I don't know why
that
you're still
whenever
talking. I'm playing the outro music right now. Outro music's playing already.
So yeah,
We're not doing it. Pauly Shore. No, that's where you end the podcast. It's only downhill from here.
Pauly Shore should be in Warhammer with Henry Cavill.
Oh my god. Well, okay. I really hope. And here's the coolest thing about like that I've learned, because I've been like passively dabbling in Warhammer. There's way too much content to consume, and I'm not in college. I don't have all the free time I had to form my identity around concepts. I think that's really what it was, and where I became a gatekeeper is when I was in college and I didn't have time to do anything else other than like study, work out, do whatever sport I was doing, and then like basically like divest in a culture, right? But like I would say the coolest thing about the Warhammer universe is it's been around for a long time, so there are a lot of different takes on it, and there are different perspectives, and they're starting to dabble with different concepts. Like there are a couple of books that I've read that get pretty comical and self-referencing. Like there's a really good book that came out in the past year when I just started getting into Warhammer called The Infinite and the Divine, and it's about Trazyn the Infinite, he's an immortal robot, right?
Aren't all robots immortal?
And Orokin the Divine, no, they're not all immortal. These guys actually have souls too. Like they went through a process called biotransference, and their entire civilization was tricked thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago into going through this process, which really just like stripped them of their flesh and stuff and then fed it to like these star gods. But now they're waking back up, and like they believe that their destiny is to take over the universe, yada, yada, yada. But you have these characters, Trazyn the Infinite, who's like this immortal robot, Orokin the Divine, who's an immortal robot. They both are like infinitely powerful, and you could easily make like just like dark, like they're trying to take over the galaxy. They're the bad guys. They're like, you know, these villains, right? But instead, the book reads like grumpy old men in space, which is so much better because it's these two robots over the course of thousands of years wasting time on a feud with one another, which just blows my mind that like someone would go, oh, you know what would be really funny? What if like they just wasted their time being mad at one another and disagreeing for like thousands of years instead of taking over the galaxy? And there's a scene where Trazyn comes in and essentially just shoots Orican in the head. And Orican's like, I didn't even do anything yet. And he's just like, yet. You know, like it's like that kind of humor. Like it's really, really good.
I am honestly pretty excited because Warhammer seems like something that I would really like. And I mean, especially if you put a frontman like Henry Cavill on it, I'm going to be interested because it's in my realm of science fiction-y, you know, world building, giant universes, you know, Star Wars, Dune, Blade Runner kind of things.
It's definitely science fantasy for sure.
Very looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I'm sure we'll talk about it more at some other point.
I hope
we'll do a Warhammer episode sometime. We'll do it right after our Star Wars episode.
Yeah, this was our Warhammer episode.
Oh, great. Perfect. I'm glad we covered everything in the Warhammer universe. That's it, folks. All right, Odie, what's a couple things? What's something you've been really into this week? Let's wrap it up.
So I'm gonna be honest.
I came prepared
this week. Because I was sick for about 3 days and then worked from home the other days. I this week rewatched all of the Clone Wars animated show.
Whoa.
Watched all of the Bad Batch, and I've recently rewatched this week. I watched episode 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars.
Okay.
And then I read a couple. I read 1.5 novels that are legends, so they're no longer canon in Star Wars. I just was on a Star Wars kick this week, man.
You were. You were really deep in the cult, Odie. Your status has increased.
I'm getting ready to make the lead. I'm trying to go for leadership status.
Oh, hell yeah. What is the leadership labeled as in the Star Wars cult?
Emperor Palpatine.
You're going to be an emperor? I'm going to be a senator. How about that? I'll be a senator. Yeah.
Ooh la la.
I actually I did finish The Mandalorian this week, so that was good.
Oh, I did watch that too. I mean, I did watch that one episode. Yeah, that was good. You know what? Can we real quick just appreciate that for once in Star Wars, we had just an ending where it was happy? Like, spoilers for the season finale of Mandalorian, but it ends with them just being able to have a plot of land. No one's after them. Bad guys, hopefully, probably dead. But it ended with like them just like happiness, and I like that.
Look, if spoilers.
Whoa, spoilers.
If Moff Gideon is not dead, I'm dropping the show.
He's not.
Then I'm dropping the show. I'm done.
He's a clone.
That
was a clone.
Don't care. I'm done.
Listen, do you remember
if you pay
dead, attention, Kevin?
I love Giancarlo Esposito.
So,
but I am. Or is it Is it Giancarlo or Juan Carlo? It's Giancarlo, right?
I think it's Juan.
I don't know. Anyway,
I think it's Jean.
Yeah. I love him, but I'm done. If he's the bad guy next season, I'm done.
I don't think he's gonna actually come. I don't think he's gonna actually come back. But if you look at him in seasons 1 and 2, he had a mustache, and then this one he didn't. And then his clones in the chambers also didn't have mustaches.
That is the most cartoony reasoning I have ever heard. That's
not mine.
For the villain
Other people
to still
came up
be
with
alive,
this.
is he didn't
Other
have
people came
his
up with this.
Mustache.
It's mustache gate. But so I think
Moff Gideon's still alive. He didn't have a mustache. Did you notice that? He definitely couldn't have shaved.
Listen, it's not my theory. I didn't come up with this. I don't want anyone to think this is me.
Fan theories are ridiculous sometimes. Sorry.
Oh, dude. You know what's funny about this? And this, just say this real quick. After the second to last episode, there were so many theories about how like the armor was like secretly a spy, and how literally there were so many videos about how everybody, Mando was gonna die, Grogu was gonna die,
God.
Armor was a traitor, this dude's a traitor.
It's so dumb.
I'm like, you guys are going to be so disappointed when this episode ends with no special cameos, no surprises. It just ends. And that's exactly what it did.
Did Bill Burr die in season 1?
No.
Okay, cool. The only cameo I want is Bill Burr back in the show for like just...
I love Bill Burr.
Even 10 minutes. I don't even care. Even if he's just like a waypoint character, I'd love to see another episode where like, he's back and he's like, oh, this fucking guy. Like, I'd love to see that. But that's the only cameo that I want to see again in that show. Like,
So what have you been watching, listening to, or consuming
dude,
this
I'm
week?
still crushing Succession. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite shows ever. I started because it's been long enough, and I'm over how bad the last season was. I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones again, and I was like, you know what's funny is the things that we consume consistently improve. So like it's funny watching old Game of Thrones episodes now and going, oh yeah, this is slower than I remember. Like. Cause,
never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
Nah.
Big recommend, man. It's good.
Yeah. It's not like the Lord of the Rings fantasy stuff. It's very hit or miss. It's very hit or miss for me.
It's worth it. I'm a sucker for like fantasy and sci-fi and like sci-fantasy, right? Like I'm really into, obviously.
Yeah.
Like I'm into D&D. I like Magic the Gathering. They have elements of both. But like, I don't know. Game of Thrones just it was such a unique thing, and when it came out, it really got my attention like from the get-go. Because I used to, at the time that it came out, I was like doing laundry at my mom's on Sundays. So I was just like, all right, well, I might as well watch something on Sunday night while I'm doing my laundry. Game of Thrones, cool. So that's what I would do. I would watch Game of Thrones on Sunday night at my mom's and do my laundry. And yeah, and it was just good. Like, I really enjoyed it.
That's good.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I went back. So Succession is like really, really good. Like that show is just really well written. I started watching Game of Thrones again. Like I said, I finished Mando, and then I would say music wise, Sleep Token released another single this week. So of course I, listened to that a bunch, and I love like just, how I am with music. I'll listen to something over and over and over again.
That's exactly how I am.
Yeah.
I'm on repeat.
Yeah, and Kaytranada and Amine, who are two really good artists that I enjoy, they released a single with Pharrell Williams, which was cool. So I was really digging on that. And that's about it, man. I mean, I'm getting ready to go to the Dominican Republic next week.
Nice.
And help build a retaining wall, or a wall or whatever it is at a school. And then, distribute some food and goods and do some real good. And like it's cool because like you have to get into a mode where you're just ready to give and not receive anything, right? Because like the things that you receive when you're giving, when you're like serving other people without expecting, well, you should never expect things in return. But like, when you're giving without, you've completely eliminated the idea of like getting something back. You're just going to help. I think the things that you get back are intrinsic, and they're long lasting, and they're perspective based. So like, I'm just getting ready for that. You got to be in like the right mode. You can't go down with any expectations. You can't go do service for people like thinking that anything's going to go a particular way. So you're really just like getting yourself ready to commit, so like, I've spent a lot of this week getting myself into the right place, making sure that I'm setting up work to be fine while I'm gone, making sure that I'm setting up for like, rent to be paid and all that stuff. So that's been a lot of my week, but it's been really, I'm already excited for it,
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, dude. And I think that's a good note to end the podcast on. Let's do one more thing. Favorite cult and why it's your favorite. And
okay,
this is the last little bit. Favorite cult, why it's your favorite, and then what you think the icon of the cult is. Wrong answers only. Go.
Okay, we're doing pop culture cults,
favorite
right?
Cult.
We're not going to do like actual cults.
No. Yeah, pop culture.
Okay, pop culture cults. I mean, my knee jerk reaction is obviously to say Star Wars, but I feel like I talk about it so much that that's like a knee jerk reaction. So I'm gonna pick something other than Star Wars as my favorite.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know what? My favorite cult, because I think it's so stupidly funny, are the fast food loyalist cults.
Oh, yeah.
And the icon, anybody from California representing In-N-Out.
There you go.
I said it.
In-N-Out, the icon.
Add California to the list.
The icon of fast food cults. I think my favorite cult is actually going the same route as you. Starbucks. Like, Starbucks is a cult. As someone who worked in coffee, like, Starbucks is only a cult. Their coffee's not that good. It's mediocre at best.
Nope.
They charge you more than other places.
Absolutely.
But the icon is there. It's the freaking Starbucks. Like, if I'm going wrong answers only, the icon is the pink drink with sweet cream cold foam. That's the icon of Starbucks now. Unofficial icon right now. But, like, you know, like people will literally go to like a place that they've never been and just expect a Starbucks to be there. That's how
they're everywhere.
That's how eponymous they have become, is that they like people will go anywhere in the world and just expect. That's like people probably roll up into like the Himalayas and they're like, yo, where's Starbucks? Straight up.
Climbing up on mountains.
Yeah,
is there Starbucks
like,
up here?
You know, like their Sherpa's like, all right, we're going to get to base camp in about a day and a half. It's going to be a pretty hard hike
Starbucks will be
today.
open?
And they're like, yeah, cool. There's a Starbucks there, right?
Yeah, that's fine. It's cool. People have died on this trail, but there's a Starbucks, right?
And then they get up there and there's like a place called like Quick Burger and they lose their fucking minds because it's not In-N-Out. Dude, okay. My favorite thing about In-N-Out, because I know that you said that they're your favorite cult. My favorite thing about In-N-Out is how anybody who's been to one even once asks you if you've been to one. First they'll be like, have you ever been to In-N-Out? Right? Like they always ask it. And then they go, do you know about the secret menu?
Oh, God, dude. The secret menu sucks.
It's not a secret.
I don't want salad dressing on my burger. Thank you, go away.
People who have been once know what it is. It is not a secret menu. That's it, man. We're ending it on that note right there.
I love it. Hi-ya.
You don't need it.